Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Throne of Steel based on novel. So let's start. After Light of Trial was utilized, the horn of the divine unicorn let out another glow of divine light, causing Long Houchen's body to turn multicolored. From the looks of it, their combination seemed like a divine tool. Long Houchen's right hand was pointed forward once again, dispersing a mystic white halo from the light god domain. A strange scene followed, the white ring of light emitted by the four-headed chimera Xingxuan unexpectedly melting like snow. After which, it did not keep spitting at all, stabilizing their own domain with full focus. That's elemental obliterating halo. Chen Hongyu was in a state of shock. Never did he expect elemental obliterating halo could possibly attain such a level, to even be able to weaken a domain. This was definitely not merely a simple elemental obliterating halo, but should be an elemental obliterating halo combined with a god's descent. With the boost from the light god domain, elemental obliterating halo already approached the forbidden spell level. Moreover, it had great restraining effects on elemental abilities, making it a perfect counter against Xingxuan's domain. Against Yang Haoyu, whose cultivation far exceeded his own, Long Houchen's light god domain could only withstand domain clashes, but in front of Chen Hongyu, with whom the gap of cultivation was not so wide, he had the opportunities to show the various uses of this light god domain. An elemental obliterating domain approached the forbidden spell grade, yet consumed only 10,000 spiritual energy out of him. Just 3 beats of his Heart of Eternity were sufficient to replenish these 10,000 spiritual energy. The elemental obliterating halo's effects were even greater than in his expectations. Long Houchen suddenly had a flash of understanding. This time, he extended his finger to the sky, as the Heart of Eternity in his chest pulsed rapidly. One could clearly see a golden halation spread out at an astonishing speed from Houchen's body, clear proof of an extremely high spiritual energy output. The light god domain pulsed abruptly, and its scope suddenly became a flat zone, encompassing a circular area, and looking the same as a spinning woman in long skirt, minus the sexy areas. The round golden area became more and more substantial, and in a wave of Long Houchen's right hand, the now spherical light god domain unexpectedly broke away from his body. He was visibly quite a bit tired, faint traces of sweat visible dripping from his forehead. When the light god domain separated itself from his body, Long Houchen's Heart of Eternity's pulse reached an extremely high speed, to the extent that even the outward spectators could hear its beat. Ring upon ring of multicolored light was also released from the divine unicorn, giving its all to boost Long Houchen. Just what kind of ability could that be, for it to take up such a massive spiritual energy? The most startled of all remained Chen Hongyu, who had believed that Xingxuan's four-element domain should be able to suppress Long Houchen's light god domain. In the meantime, that golden fog of light slowly advanced, making contact with the shrunken four-element domain. A terrible scene emerged. The four-element domain was suddenly on the edge of getting cut apart. A huge unmanned expanse was filled with light and cut through, and from the elemental clashes, the four-element domain continuously let out fierce rumbles, each of which caused a four-colored fog to disperse from the four-headed chimera, which had to withdraw as a result. Right now, those powerhouses of the 9th step all saw clearly the reason behind Long Houchen's sphere of light, revolving at extremely fast speed, and shaking abundantly. Even more terrifyingly, it had effects similar to the forbidden spell level elemental obliterating halo. One could wonder how terrifying its cutting forces level reached. This was clearly a domain technique. Li Jingji lost his voice. After Long Houchen got suppressed by Yang Haoyu's domain technique the day before, today he showed a pleasant surprise to everyone present here. A domain technique emerging from the light god domain. If Long Houchen had told them that this domain technique had actually emerged just now, in a flash of inspiration, who knew if someone would believe in that? But that was just how that happened. Moreover, Long Houchen clearly sensed that if he could compress this spherical area into a smaller area, this domain technique would reach an even more terrifying level of power. The principles behind this domain technique were simple. It used Long Houchen's self-created light ripples, as well as elemental obliterating halo manipulated through the light god domain. This process was simple to describe, but achieving it was extremely difficult. If not for Long Houchen's light god physique and perfect manipulation of his light god domain, how could he make use of a technique emerging from his domain, thus creating his own domain technique? At this point of the match, the victor was already determined. Although Chen Hongyu and Xingxuan's contracted fusion was a powerful thing, they were suppressed domain-wise, and moreover their spiritual energy recovery was no match against Long Houchen. Adding to that this domain technique of a higher notch of his, he had no other choice than to concede. Rapid fluctuations kept fluctuating, as the terrible rotating light blade was nearing him. Chen Hongyu was actually really unwilling to concede in the competition. Still, the words, "I concede," came out from Xingxian's four large heads, giving Long Houchen quite a surprise. At this time Long Houchen finally understood that Chen Hongyu turned out to have used some mystic technique to fuse with his contracted beast. This way, even if Hao Yue was called out, the blood suppression's effects would not be as formidable. Turning back, the chimera dejectedly made way into the gate of light, and the next instant, Chen Hongyu came out, an unsightly expression on his face. As someone regarding his own face with great importance, he really couldn't accept being vanquished by a youngster such as Long Houchen. That was really hard to bear deep in his heart. But even so, what could he do about it? It's not as if he was even able to beat the other party. "What's the name of your previous domain technique?" Chen Hongyu asked gloomily. Long Houchen was startled. "Domain technique? Oh, right. That previous flash of understanding was nothing else than a domain technique. I call it Divine Light Waltz." Divine Light Waltz. Chen Hongyu let out a snort, returning on the side of the spiritual temple without even turning his head back. This was a whole generation of talents, and moreover, these extremely outstanding talents were all gathered together. Long Houchen immediately shut his eyes after returning, silently contemplating on his previous use of the Divine Light Waltz. This was his very first time using that ability, after instantaneous comprehension, as well as his very first domain technique. Only when he really put a domain technique into use, could that domain's formidable strength come out to a truly great extent. Chen Hongyu fusing with his four-headed chimera was already nearing the peak of the third rank in strength, but was left without means in front of his domain technique, ultimately able only to concede. Only, Long Houchen's control over this Divine Light Waltz was still too weak. He was unable to even guarantee that he could utilize it another time. Since he had a flash of comprehension of it, he couldn't let it slip. His powerful light god physique once again showed a great level of decisiveness. The competition still kept going, and once again, the greatest winner of these fourth rounds was still Bright Glimmer of Hope, having already achieved 3 victories by the time of the 5th match out of 12. Moreover, they had some individuals who had yet to appear, these people being Kia, Chen Ying'er and Sima Xian. Sima Xian's displays finally came to an end. Facing one of the auxiliary heads of the Mage Temple, a domain-wielding powerhouse, he may have at least put up a fight if he had the gigantic ball of light at his disposal, but unfortunately, without his weapon in hand, though he may have inconvenienced the enemy with his thunder-manipulating spiritual stove, he was still pushed out of the field in the end, thus eliminating one person among Bright Glimmer of Hope's ranks. In the 8th of the 12 matches of the 4th round, the light of selection finally illuminated Kia, her opponent being one mage from the Mage Temple. Her figure flashing, Kia floated out immediately. The instant her footsteps pushed onto the ground, she had already shifted in the field. Speaking of which, Kia's luck was much better than Long Houchen in the first 3 individual rounds. She did not have any tough battles. Even in the 3rd round, she had run into a rather weak opponent, passing through this ordeal with no difficulty, and without even using her domain. Actually, even Sima Xian had a higher reputation in this gathering. When Sima Xian had just lost his match, the spectators both in the stadium and outside let out series of regretful sighs. They really found his coarse and wild fighting style very attractive. Of course, Kia was not really inconspicuous either. At least, since the previous day those powerhouses who had caught sight of the Tower of Eternity did not see her that way. However, the outsiders did not get to catch sight of that scene. Kia's opponent was a veteran mage, clad in a simple black gown and with clear silver hair. His eyes were really characteristic, devoid of the slightest blemish, they contrasted with the wrinkles on his aged face. But these purple eyes looked really similar to a lot of noble demons. This old mage was named Mo Wu, and even within the mage temple, very few are familiar with him, to speak nothing of the external temples. He had a title of elder from the mage temple, and hadn't shown any prominent display, achieving victories without any flashy moves. Up to this fourth round, Kia's only impression on this mysterious Mo Wu was the darkness element he wielded. The next instant, this mage Mo Wu already appeared in another direction, with a spinning dark purple triangle visible underneath him. What technique is that? This was the first time for Kia to see such a thing. That was very clearly a self-created technique. She obviously couldn't let the opponent complete his magic. With a cold snort, her body flashed once again, but this time, with a lift of her right arm, a huge pure white sickle had appeared in her palm. The sickle of the god of death couldn't be used, but could be imitated. After all, that was the weapon she held with the greatest mastery. The sickle of the god of death swept at the air, immediately causing a spatial crack to appear. It was a small crack, but the instant it appeared, an essence of some unknown element immediately gathered, and that crack actually displayed a massive attractive power. Not only that, but the sickle of the god of death in Kia's hand swept at 6 angles, where similar cracks appeared, stirring up all the elemental essence in the stadium and causing a state of spatial chaos. She did not know what the opponent did, but a darkness element mage cannot possibly execute teleportations, which means that some spatial magic was surely mixed in. Stirring spatial chaos was obviously to prevent her counterpart from teleporting. All of this happened very fast. Seeing the flickers of pure white colors originating from Kia, Mo Wu's expression changed slightly. The next instant, Kia reappeared in front of him, the sickle of the god of death flashing in her hand and slowly hacking at him. Its blade edge carried a sharp, highly invasive aura. But too shockingly, Mo Wu did not draw back, but stepped up instead, pointing his right hand at the empty space, where a purplish-black ray took shape. Just as if the air had become his drawing board, he drew a specific imprint with his hand. What Kia sensed was completely different from the onlookers. With these gestures, Mo Wu's body immediately looked illusory, and countless Mo Wu shapes arose in front of her, causing his opponent's murderous spirit, which had locked onto him, to become fainter. In a white flash, that purplish-black ray disappeared, and this instant, Mo Wu's magic was completed. Purplish-black pillars appeared out of nowhere and surrounded Kia's body in a flash, turning into a circular cage trapping her within. Hell's Cage, a powerful darkness attribute spell of the 9th step. Kia's sickle was swept horizontally, but only passed through, as if there was no collision at all. But when she tried to rush out with her body, she immediately felt an acute sting spread all over her body as the massive darkness element directly penetrated inside her body. That's... Kia was startled, but had the same calm disposition as usual. She did not panic in front of this kind of situation. Her sickle of the god of death disappearing, she placed her hands in front of her chest, her eyes even closing down. She seemed to be sensing something, looking for a hole in the Hell's Cage. Seeing his Hell's Cage being so effective, Mo Wu couldn't help but reveal a dim smile. As he kept up the incantation, some purplish-black halations spread underneath his feet, and very quickly, these halations took a solid form, ascending over his body to take a shape close to an altar. Raising his right hand, a black staff appeared in Mo Wu's hands. Although only formed with spiritual energy, it made him look extremely sumptuous and mighty right now. Since when did the Mage Temple have another powerhouse like that? This was clearly the power of a domain. Those from the other 5 temples couldn't help but cry out in alarm. This Mo Wu's attainments and cultivation were far higher than they expected. Not only was Kia trapped by this mage, but he moreover displayed a domain, which was clearly purely a boosting domain. His next magic would surely gain an impressive deal of might. Some purplish-black symbols started to drift around the altar, as his downcast chant reverberated through the whole stadium. One could faintly see the ground turn unwittingly into that purplish-black color. The cracks left earlier by Kia also closed entirely. Destructor of darkness, ruler of darkness. Descend, dark sovereign. As his chant went on, Mo Wu's eyes shot up with purple electric light, and a purple hexagram appeared in front of his altar. There, a massive image started to take shape, drifting inside that hexagram. It was a human figure measuring about 5 meters, clad in a dark purple armor, and with a pair of large curved horns extending from the back of its head. But as that individual was masked, his face was not visible. In his right hand was a huge sword, gushing out with purplish black light. Just as he appeared, he gave off an incorporeal pressure. Even the defensive barrier's defense gave off a kind of stifling feeling. What a powerful dark mage! Lin Shin couldn't help but remark in alarm. This was clearly a formidable dark mage, who had furthermore summoned a dark sovereign of terrifying strength, whose might could even compare with the post-fusion four-headed chimera of Chen Hongyu. The mage temple actually had such a killing move in store. This was really something no one expected. If only Boss was the one facing him. Han Yu couldn't help but let these words slip. Mo Wu was a dark mage, so Long Houchen had the light god domain to suppress him perfectly, and had naturally no fears to have. But how about Kia? The strongest of bright glimmer of hope was undoubtedly Long Houchen, followed by Kia. The blow if Kia were to lose her match would be considerably huge to them. Be at ease, Kia will surely make it. Long Houchen had already opened his eyes at some point. The start of Kia's battle, and the huge threat confronting her immediately came to his senses. Right now, Kia seemed to be at an absolute disadvantage, but was that really the case? After the Dark Sovereign appeared, it did not let out any special sound. Floating in mid-air, he arrived in one stride in front of Kia, locked by Hell's Cage. Lifting the huge sword in his hand high, he abruptly struck it onto Kia. After completing this magic, Mo Wu 8 had his eyes shut, sitting cross-legged above that dark altar which was his domain, able to increase sharply the might of all his darkness elemental magic, as well as increase his magic recovery. Perhaps this couldn't be counted as a very strong domain, because of its important limitations, but if one were to allow him to take control of the battle, that domain would show the most of its capability. Facing the strike of the huge sword, Kia's body disappeared instantly, and without the slightest prior indication. Mo Wu noticed almost instantly that the dark purple triangle appeared again. Right away, his body disappeared from that altar. White traces appeared on that dark altar, instantly smashed it to pieces, and turned into countless purplish black airstreams. Kia appeared right where Mo Wu used to be, floating there. Mo Wu was shocked, because he had no idea how Kia escaped from his Hell's Cage. That was a locking magic of the 9th step. Furthermore, Kia had shown no signs of movement from there. How could he know how strong Kia had gotten after breaking through the 9th step? The instant that Hell's Cage had surfaced, she had used a doppelganger technique to be trapped in her stead, and at the same time utilized invisibility. Another person's doppelganger couldn't last for so long, and would immediately get found out in front of a mage's sharp senses, so they would not even be able to escape the lock of the Hell's Cage. But Kia was not the same. As the saint daughter of Samsara, she had the power of purification. Being an assassin with the most optimum gifts, she wouldn't be fit to be called such if she was unable to escape the opponent's lock. However, for the sake of keeping her doppelganger stable, she couldn't blindly go into action after escaping, or it would immediately disappear. Only when Mo Wu's summoned Dark Sovereign had attacked did Kia abruptly launch an attack. However, Mo Wu really had a precise judgment, using his teleportation-like technique to escape Kia's hit once again. Even so, his garment was dripping in sweat. If he were just a bit slower, Kia's attack would have landed on him, therefore achieving victory. Done running around. The corners of Kia's mouth traced a cold smile. Of course she knew that their greatest rival in this trip was the Mage Temple, and would show no kind feelings to a mage from the Mage Temple. The sickle of the god of death formed of light of purification was slowly raised. She did not fly again, but came running in front of the Dark Sovereign. The sickle of the god of death dragging behind her, Kia's eyes turned white. Her absolutely cold and beautiful demeanor surged, forming along with her massive sickle a magnificent yet mystical scene. Although her opponent's display was also quite dazzling, this scene caused the absolute majority of the spectators to unconsciously put their faith on Kia. After all, dark creatures were originally abhorred, to say nothing about Kia's beautiful yet so young traits. The Dark Sovereign's eyes flashed with a purple glint, his right feet stomping heavily onto the ground as he took hold of his massive purplish-black heavy sword in both of his hands. The most frightening aspect of this Dark Sovereign lay in his extremely compact, wielded darkness spiritual energy. It was not externalized, but attached onto his weapon, which gained a great deal of bursting power. Kia did not evade, nor did she use any special technique, just brazenly swung down her sickle of the god of death, her whole body flickering with white light, as her imposing manner rose to the peak. Despotic strike. That was an ability evolved from despotic thrust. Right now, Kia's move was full of an indescribably powerful tyrannical force. Ding! In a tingling clash, the sickle of the god of death in Kia's hands broke down. After all, that was not the real sickle of the god of death, just a condensation made of spiritual energy. In terms of offense and defense, it was far below the sickle of the god of death of divine grade. But that Dark Sovereign was not well off either. One could clearly see that during the clash between the two opponents, the purplish-black aura spreading out from his body was totally repelled, as if trying to break away from his body, while his movements also turned sluggish. Kia really showed an unyielding performance, condensing another sickle of the god of death in her hand. An unrestrained white glow flashed out in the air, causing lacerating sounds to arise from the loud explosive sound of a chop at the opponent's heavy sword. The Dark Sovereign let out a low howl, causing purplish-black colored fog to rise up, and rise sharply its imposing manner as well. Purplish-black blisters rushed up from underneath the ground, turning into countless purplish-black rays interweaving in the air. That was a domain, the Dark Sovereign's domain. Although no one here knew its name, that was no doubt a domain specialized in large area attacks. Those previous black blisters were not all Mo Wu's, but from this Dark Sovereign, a creature of darkness of the second rank of the 9th step, which already had its own domain. The darkness summons of this Mo Wu were simply even more frightening than the spiritual temples. But what shocked the crowd even more was the scene of Kia's next move, already about 10 meters above the Dark Sovereign's head. The Dark Sovereign's domain had already erupted, and as that was a crowd-attacking domain, it did not give the slightest space to possibly dodge the attack. Mo Wu was already fully prepared. As long as Kia would be unable to resist anymore, he'd immediately stop the attack, but an unforgettable scene came next to his sight. Floating in mid-air, Kia took a praying posture, and cleansing white glows turned into petals spreading downwards. The Dark Sovereign's body shook slightly. Raising his head to look at Kia in mid-air, his body suddenly shivered upon sight of the domain of purification dispersed at rapid speed around her. Immediately, he reappeared right on the edge of the stadium, lifting the heavy sword in his hand, slashing it rapidly, causing a dark purple hexagram to surface, and immediately making way inside. What followed was a scene of an abruptly shaking Dark Sovereign before Mo Wu's body was also thrown away, as the Dark Sovereign directly disappeared in that purple hexagram. The Dark Sovereign having just gone away, his domain naturally dissipated as well, leaving only a sweaty Mo Wu. He did not understand why the Dark Sovereign left so hastily despite being in no position of inferiority. Could it be that it was starting to rain, as he had left some clothes to dry? This monstrous question flashed in Mo Wu's mind, as the only thing left in the air was Kia with her unleashed domain, calmly confronting him. I know that while you major in darkness magic, you also have a mastery in spatial magic. Perhaps your spatial magic can allow you to keep teleporting, but I want to see if your teleporting can succeed while in my domain of purification. White light spread in front of Mo Wu. The instant his body came in contact with Kia, he immediately understood why the Dark Sovereign had fled in panic. An indescribable pain surged in the depths of his soul. As his body shook intensely, he abruptly stated, I concede. There was no other choice but to concede. That terrifying domain of purification seemed to suppress the darkness attribute in a way no weaker than a light attribute domain. Not only was his spiritual energy purified, but moreover, his soul was the target. Even more terrifyingly, the purified spiritual energy was the core of his power. That is to say that under the effects of the domain of purification, his cultivation would continuously decrease. How could Mo Wu bear such a loss? As for the escape of the Dark Sovereign, his only reason was that he was afraid, having gotten caught by a terrible sense of dread. Perhaps he was strong enough to put up a fight against Kia, but how about after that? If the domain of purification were to purify his soul, he would be gone forever. The Dark Sovereign was no idiot, and he had no deep bond with Mo Wu, only a special connection. How could he be willing to throw his life away for the sake of this connection? That was simply impossible. Just go die by yourself if that's what you want, but don't implicate me. After sensing the terror of the domain of purification, the Dark Sovereign instantly fled. Kia slowly landed from the sky, retrieved the petals forming domain of purification, and flashed out of the match ground, after shooting a glance at Mo Wu. Actually, the most disadvantaged in this individual competition out of Bright Glimmer of Hope was Kia. Although she did have her domain of purification, her real fighting strength lay mostly in the sickle of the god of death she had been cultivating since young. Without the real weapon in her hands, she had no way to wield the 7 arts of the god of death. Furthermore, in times of battle, the sickle of the god of death would be struggling to get out, so not only could Kia not use it, but had moreover to put some of her focus on suppressing it. So it would be already pretty good for Kia to wield a half of her strength in this individual competition, and her terrifying bursting force could by no means be displayed. The 4th match in Bright Glimmer of Hope's ranks was designated. They had already occupied a third of the spots, and moreover had a person who had yet to take part. When Chen Yinga went on stage, she encountered the last leftover competitor of the Assassin Temple, and managed to achieve victory by the means of her powerful summoning magic. The 4th match having ended, time had come for the 5th and more terrifying leader match. The individual competition having reached this point, Bright Glimmer of Hope's advance was already unstoppable. A group of 10, formed with 2 powerhouses reaching the peak of the 8th step, and 8 reaching the 9th step, with 4 domain-wielding powerhouses among the lot. Their captain Long Houchen had displayed the use of the 2 ultimate weapons known as Domain Technique and Domain Evolution, managing to defeat 2 temple heads, and the number 1 powerhouse of the Night Temple. A lot of people sensed that this temple's great gathering would inevitably get recorded in the annals. And they were still so young. If they were given enough time to keep growing, destroying demonkind wouldn't be impossible. Although each of the 6 great temples had its own way to do things, which caused the Temple Alliance to be relatively dispersed, their struggle for over 6,000 years of Dark Era against demonkind had already lasted for far too long. Who knew how much blood of how many powerhouses of the 6 temples had flown? Bright Glimmer of Hope were really showing them a glimmer of a new dawn, and causing indescribable feelings to rise up in a lot of people's minds. If there was one thing it brought to them, they would definitely declare that it's hope. Each victor of the 4th round could gain 8 points, and after passing through this hurdle, the Night Temple had only 2 people left, the Mage Temple had 3, the Spiritual Temple had 2, and Bright Glimmer of Hope had 2. The Assassin Temple and Warrior Temple were already eliminated. After the 4th rounds were over and the points were totaled, the 5th round of matches immediately took place. It had a total of 6 matches, and although based on the prior patterns, Bright Glimmer of Hope's 5 remaining members would get placed in 5 of the matches, running into each other was not impossible for them. But in short, Bright Glimmer of Hope would have to face at the same time the top of the Night, Mage, and Spiritual Temples. Every one of their remaining members had gotten over 16 points, but although Bright Glimmer was currently in the lead, that lead was not yet stable and could change at any time. The first match was already a great clash of power. Chen Yinga's good luck seemed to be finally exhausted, the light of selection having landed on her and the head of the Mage Temple, Li Jingji. Long Houchen's expression changed slightly, looking face to face at Chen Yinga, before she nodded back to him, standing up and slowly advancing toward the stage. In this match, Li Jingji was especially calm. Although Bright Glimmer of Hope had gotten prideful results, he remained impassive, his feelings devoid of the slightest ripple. Who knew if he really did not care about them, or had other kinds of thoughts? Currently, the only leftover temple leader was Li Jingji, the other 4 having all gotten eliminated. Him facing Chen Yinga right off the bat really rose the excitation of the spectators to the peak. This Chen Yinga was a domain wielder as well. Could Bright Glimmer of Hope keep bringing nice surprises to everyone here? With a faint smile on her face, Chen Yinga advanced to the field, performing a salute to Li Jingji. After all, Li Jingji was still a senior. Li Jingji nodded slightly, and performed an inviting gesture. With his status, there's naturally no way he could rush to take the first move against someone of Chen Yinger's age. Chen Yinger directly sat cross-legged before starting a chant, without the slightest defensive measure taken beforehand. Looking at her, Li Jingji couldn't help but smile in reaction. What a girl! She was clearly taking advantage of his unwillingness to take the first move. But even if I don't take the first move, do you really think I have no other means? Li Jingji maintained a slight smile, but still kept standing still and started a chant. A fantastic calm filled the whole stadium. Ever since the start of the temple's great gathering, this was the first time two mags were facing off each other without the slightest probing attack. An insipid entity spread out from Li Jingji's body, very rapidly taking shape on his back, forming green light interwoven around him. Being shaped into an enlarged version of Li Jingji, its chubby looks actually gave off a silly feeling of cuteness. Seated on the Night Temple's side, Long Haochen couldn't help but feel a chill of alarm. Li Jingji used a sort of wind god summoning magic, but which took less than 20 seconds to complete. The formidable power of this spell reached the forbidden spell level without a doubt. That was just crazy. Furthermore, that was accomplished without any equipment, and in the meantime, Li Jingji had yet to even deploy his wind god domain. Chen Yinger seemed not to be perturbed by Li Jingji's magic at all, still continuing her chant, which continued in an even more obscure and redundant manner. After that, some changes finally couldn't help but occur to Li Jingji's face, because he couldn't identify the spell corresponding to her incantation. Although Li Jingji had some ideas on the matter, he had still underestimated the chanting time Chen Yinger would take. In a blink of an eye, 3 minutes had passed, yet Chen Yinger was still going on, and her spell had yet to take effect. If it wasn't because he already knew that Chen Yinger had reached the 9th step, Li Jingji would be thinking of her to be faking a chant. Just what chant could last so long? Girl, if you keep going on like that, this old man will make his move. Li Jingji's dim voice reverberated in the whole stadium. Even for his face, he couldn't waste his energy in this temple's great gathering. Maintaining this forbidden spell depleted his spiritual energy rapidly, and as other matches were coming next, an excessive consumption would very clearly be unfavorable to him. Right after Li Jingji was done speaking, Chen Yinger suddenly opened her eyes and showed him a sweet smile, giving the reply, "Done." Saying that, Chen Yinger lifted her hands and extended her fingertip, pointing her palms upwards, as if releasing something. Immediately, roars from myriad beasts came gushing out from her body like a tsunami, but moreover, it was accompanied with the images of countless magical beasts coming out behind Chen Yinger's back. Is that a domain? But how could a domain need such a long chant? Li Jingji recognized in a glance a powerful summoner domain. Could that be the same beast emperor domain as her grandfather? Chen Yinger had displayed the use of her domain in the previous matches, but only in the shape of single-targeted amplifications of magical beasts, aimed at most at 2 targets, but seeing such a large area extended domain from her was really a first. The next instant after Li Jingji was filled with those questions, his look changed. Light gates surfaced in an orderly manner behind Chen Yinger's back. Seeing these, the most shocked were no one else, but those from her own spiritual temple. Even the head of the spiritual temple Chen Hongyu was dumbstruck by this scene. He never thought his own granddaughter to be able to utilize such a magic. He was also puzzled over why Chen Yinger had been chanting for so long. Even after having been in control of the spiritual temple for so many years, he had no memories of such a long chant from their spiritual temple. Even summoning a magical beast of the 9th step wouldn't need so long. Otherwise, in the battlefield, a summoner had the time to die 100 times in the lapse of 3 minutes. Right now, Chen Hongyu was really crushed by his own granddaughter, and the same went for every present summoners, who never expected a single summoner to be able to display a strength reaching such a peak. Just count these gates, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Counting them in a glance was simply impossible. These gates formed an immense semicircular shape, as if surrounding and protecting Chen Yinger. In the midst of those myriad beasts' roars, all the light gates opened at the same time, letting magical beasts come out one after another from within. There were a total of 36 light gates, from whence 36 magical beasts immediately came out right upon appearance. Seeing these magical beasts, Li Jingji's look became slightly better. They only reached the 8th step and not the 9th. If Chen Yinge was able to summon 36 magical beasts equivalent to powerhouses of the 9th step at once, that would really be overly terrifying. But even so, Chen Yinge summoning magic still shocked the whole audience. 36 simultaneous magical beasts of the 8th step, what was that? That would be enough to turn the tides in a whole portion of the battlefield in just a few instants. So Bright Glimmer of Hope's most powerful member was this summoner. The other members of Bright Glimmer of Hope had their own conclusion on whether Chen Yinge was the most powerful, but one thing was certain: she was a god's chosen one just like Long Haochen and Kia. Even if she may not have earned as much as Long Haochen and Kia in these years, she was in no way inferior. This summon before her eyes had depleted all her spiritual energy, but what if she had her saint's spiritual robe? Would the chanting time even be so long? And the same goes for her spiritual energy. 36 magical beasts of the 8th step appearing in the stadium simultaneously had absolutely shaken the whole audience. Although these magical beasts were of different races, they listened wholeheartedly to Chen Yinge's orders. Right off the bat, they madly charged at Li Jingji. Li Jingji snorted coldly. Mere magical beasts reaching the 8th step were nothing in his eyes. Even if they were even more numerous, at his cultivation level, killing magical beasts of this level was just too simple. As he waved his hands, the massive green figure on his back immediately drifted away, both hands raised to the sky releasing green moon-shaped blades. It appeared like an uncrossable barrier standing in front of Li Jingji. But his look grew unsightly once again the next instant. Chen Yinge issued a shriek, and immediately, the myriad beasts' images that had come out previously solidified, rushing at the magical beasts of the 8th step that had surged out, and attached themselves onto them, causing the beasts to start undergoing rapid changes. A gigantic black bear bellowed loudly, swelling to twice its previous size, growing twice as large, as its hairs astonishingly started to turn into a dark gold color. In the midst of roars, it let out terrifying seismic waves aimed at the wind god called out by Li Jingji. Evolution. What Chen Yinge had utilized was obviously not the same myriad beasts domain as Chen Hongyu, but her mythologic beast domain. Being the beast god's chosen one, a unique saint spiritual daughter to have come in existence in the human world, her boosting ability on magical beasts fundamentally even exceeded Yi Xiaolei's back in the illusory paradise. Under the boost of the beast emperor domain, these magical beasts of the 8th step all evolved to the 9th step, turning into 36 magical beasts of the 9th step, releasing a terrible might which frantically pounced on Li Jingji. A miscalculation. Li Jingji had immediately come to this judgment, causing him to have traces of regrets. He really should not have let Chen Yinge complete her previous magic. 36 magical beasts of the 9th step and 36 magical beasts of the 8th step were two fundamentally different concepts. After completion of these global boosts, Chen Yinge sat down in a quite weakened state, but still had the energy to ferociously utter, "Everyone, get rid of him." 36 magical beasts of the 9th step pouncing on a single opponent was a really spectacular sight. The pair of massive moon-shaped blades in the wind god's hands managed to stop the attack of 3 magical beasts of the 9th step, but then started to get somewhat unstable. 9th step would be the assessment based on human cultivation, but in terms of magical beast grade, these would be magical beasts of the 10th rank. They may not be as strong as the 4-headed Medusa or divine unicorn, but as magical beasts of 10th rank, they still reached the peak of magical beasts. Simply said, right now it was as if Li Jingji was assaulted by the whole Golden Foundation Knight Regiment. That lineup didn't feel any easier to face. That terrible hurricane was entirely colored dark green. Everywhere it passed, every magical beast it encountered was getting cut frantically. If these were magical beasts of the 8th step, their bodies would certainly get smashed to pieces under attacks of this level. But magical beasts of the 9th step were not the same. Their defensive power was far stronger than at the 8th step, so there was no immediate danger for them. Chen Yinge ignored this situation, only silently sitting there to replenish her spiritual energy, the little pygmic doll being held in her arms. Li Jingji, having restricted these magical beasts Thanks to his domain technique, his wind god summoning's power started to emerge. With the boost from the wind god domain, Li Jingji's wind god incarnated body gained an explosive burst in speed and offensive power. In a flash of green light, that gigantic bear stood like nothing in its way, while in response his incarnation got repelled 10 meters back in the blast of the bear's palm attack. But in front of the wind god domain's amplification, an attack of this level was nothing. The look on Li Jingji's face did not improve, just because of getting rid of one magical beast of the 9th step. Quite the opposite, it got even more strained. A domain technique's spiritual energy consumption could only be described as terrifying, even with his internal spiritual energy having already broken through 400,000, he couldn't keep utilizing it for too long. He had only one choice left now, which would be to take advantage of the situation to get rid of Chen Yinga. This way these magical beasts would go out of control, causing a better turn for his situation. Part 1 end here.